Sometimes I wonder if these videos are getting repetitive, but I'm just gonna keep doing them and try to make them interesting for you. And if you're new here, I'm Sandra, I'm 26 years old. I am paying off a butt ton of student loan debt, and every single time I get paid, I show you how I budget my paycheck in order to do this while balancing everything else I wanna achieve in life. No small task indeed. This one is a little bit exciting for two reasons. The first is I got a raise. I got a 3.5% raise. Raises at my workplace are slightly merit-based, but for the most part, not really. So this did add a little bit of money to my paycheck. And then the other thing is that for the past 1,000 budget with me's, I've been telling you that my budget spreadsheet was out of date because I had switched spreadsheets partway through the year. And one of the cool things about my spreadsheet is that it does roll money over month to month in each category. So a lot of my categories were looking super negative because I spent really low at the beginning of the year and high kind of towards the end of the year when they were actually pulled in. In this video, finally, I have updated that and I have accurate category numbers for the most part. I need to go back through and edit a couple things. It's kind of hard when you do 9 months of your budget in one sitting. If you're not familiar, I did build out my own spreadsheet because I wanted to solve a couple problems that I had with other ones. It's available down below if you're interested in it. The problems that I solved were that I wanted to be able to assign money to different buckets and then have that money live in those buckets even if I didn't spend it and roll over to the next month so that I could account for variability. I also wanted my expense tracking to be on the same page as my targets so I could easily see how my expenses were feeding into my budget. I set a budget once at the beginning of the year, so we're getting ready to reset the budget for next year, and then everything just happens in one place. Let's just get into budgeting. Okay, first things first, we're not gonna pay too much mind to the buckets because I do need to edit them, but they're not all negative for the first time ever, so that's good. As you guys know, whenever I get paid, I never know how much I get paid until I look at my banking app to see how much I made. The only downside of this is that I'm not really checking my paycheck to my hours, and I need to be better about that. I'm trusting my work to not make an error. If there was a huge variation in my pay, or if I had like very variable hours, I probably would be a little bit more on top of it, but there's not that much of a difference. But I work 40 hours a week and I get paid for 40 hours a week. So my paychecks don't vary too much. Anyways, this is the first paycheck that raise reflects on, and I made $2,034.63. Jake just contributes part of his paycheck to our household income, so we just track $2,500 there, bringing our total income that we're working with this paycheck to $4,534.63. We are both paid bi-weekly, so that usually means twice a month. We just had a 3-paycheck month. How great is that? I would consider us high earners. $4,500 in one paycheck is a good amount of money to work with, and we're able to use that money wisely towards our financial goals. We're both younger, so we've got big goals, big dreams. We're making them happen here. So with that being said, my channel is primarily focused on financial education and financial transparency with the goal to show other high earners what you can do with your discretionary income to build the life you love. For me, that includes paying off debt, investing aggressively to achieve early retirement, while also spending on things I care about like travel, eating well, and having community. I'm able to juggle all of these things because I practice what's called value-based spending, where I spend on high value categories and then I cut everywhere else. So my money goes a lot further because I'm not spending on things that don't add value to my life. And then I also took it upon myself to learn about money so I can really understand how my financial goals impact my quality of life in the long run, which makes it a lot easier to spend on those financial goals. For me right now, my biggest financial goal is paying off my student loan debt, and I want to do this because if I can lower my monthly fixed costs, I can afford to work less technically because I don't need to make money to cover those costs. I can also put more money towards financial goals or elevate my lifestyle if I lower my costs. So the first thing I do every single time I get paid is put money towards my financial goal of paying off my debt. My first paycheck always goes to paying the minimums on each of my loans, which is about $1,070. And that is the minimum payment that would allow me to pay off my student loans in 10 years. I'm paying my loans off a lot quicker than that. I am not doing public student loan forgiveness, so this is not an income-based payment. It is quite literally a 10 years to pay off the whole balance payment. I'm paying off a lot more than that whole balance, I'm telling you. So I'm just gonna plug this in towards my debt, and then let's go ahead and jump on and make that payment. Currently, my student loan balance is $78,067. As you know, I'm working on paying off my student loan 5, which currently has a balance of $12,778 and an interest rate of 6.5%. I am paying off my loans using the debt avalanche. So I'm paying off the highest interest rate loans first and then working my way down using the minimum payment and putting it towards principal on the next loan. So we already paid off my 4th student loan. $300 that was the minimum payment for that loan just gets put towards towards the principal of this loan now. And then if you're following along, you also know that every single time I make a payment, it says that I don't have any payments due. These loans are all accruing interest still. So I make the minimum payment on them every single month because that minimum payment does tackle all of the interest for the month as well as a little bit of the principal. So I'm working these numbers down slowly. I just don't want them growing in the background while I'm focused on one loan. So even though I have nothing due on these in December, I'm gonna go ahead and make the payment towards them so that we can just keep tackling that interest down. So we're gonna come up here and hit custom pay. Okay, if I wanted to pay $1,070 to all of these loans. And then it's calling all of this an overpayment because I don't actually have anything due. But like I said, these are still all accruing interest. If they weren't accruing interest, I'd put this all towards my loan 5, which is the one that I want to pay down. And then this is how much money we're putting towards each of these loans. I do want to advance my due date by the number of payments I cover. I do this because if I lose my job or whatever, and I'm 3 months ahead, I might as well take credit for that and not have to pay anything versus missing a payment. So I advance my due date, which is why it says I have no payment due, but I still make the minimum payment every single month. We have a total of $1,070 pending. So we've plugged that in, we've done it. This means that we have $3,891 left to assign. All right, but with the $3,891, the first thing that I want to do is invest $583 to max out my Roth IRA for the month. I am working on maxing out my Roth IRA every single year. You can invest up to $7,000 in your Roth IRA if you are under the age of 50, 55. 7,000 divided by 12 every single month. You can just invest $7,000 in a month if that's your journey. It is not the journey for me. I dollar cost average it and just do it this way. So $583. That I can't do right away, because there's too much bank information on the page when I do that in front of you guys. And then also that just transfers the money. So I will do it off screen. It's nothing exciting. I can't like actually buy any stocks with it because the money takes like 2 to 4 business days to transfer and it doesn't actually. So we'll just plug that in and then it'll be on my to-do list to do later. Sorry, no, you don't get to see my bank information. I'll give you my student loan login if you're willing to pay them all off. Okay, anyways, let's see. So that leaves us with $3,300 left to work with. My variable expenses are $2,200. So we're just gonna go ahead and assign the rest of my variable expenses here. So starting with $1,000 for groceries. Now, again, my assigning just means that I'm giving the money that job. It is there to work for that job, and if it doesn't do the job, then it rolls over. If you're using this and up to date on previous month's contributions or just starting your contributions, then it will be accurate. So this $1,000 I assign, if we only spend $800 of it, then $200 will just roll over in my bucket to next month. So what I'm doing right now is giving the money a job, and then when I actually spend money on groceries, I'll track it in my expenses and the difference will get left in a bucket. And then the bucket is there just to account for variability in your spending. Okay, $150 for eating out. This might be the first time that we actually hit that amount in a couple months. We are not eating out a lot. We're gonna assign $350 for our cars, $250 for household expenses, and then my spending and Jake's spending are both $200 a month. This is just our guilt-free, like we can spend it on whatever we want. Subscriptions is at $50 a month. I'm gonna have to buy a new subscription soon because 6-part docuseries comes out on Disney Plus in December, so I'll be spending money on that. Okay, what do we have left now? Let's see, $1,100, kind of closer to $600 because of this being what it is. So $1,100 left to assign means that we can cover my contributions to my savings, which is only $200 a month for me. I actually pulled out Jake's contributions because it was just getting too confusing for me to like reconcile my accounts when I looked at this template and it was our shared, but we don't have shared savings accounts, but we have shared buckets kind of, but he keeps his buckets, his sinking funds somewhere and I keep my sinking funds somewhere. I wanted this to reflect my sinking funds. So I save 21 bucks a month for gifts. You'd think I'd have this memorized by now. $21 a month. Savings, $100 a month for travel, which does say it's negative right now. So, okay, I fix these buckets. They're still not perfect. I'm working on it. I save $34 a month for my ski pass. And then I save I save $15 a month for my credit card annual fees, $50 a month for car maintenance. Okay, anyways, now that we've assigned our savings, we have $888 left to assign, but I bet you that's everything except the mortgage, which would be kind of cool. So let's go ahead and just assign that. I'm literally just gonna copy and paste here. Crap, no I'm not. Okay, so we're gonna do $187 to gas and power. Okay, that leaves us with $192 rolling over to the next paycheck that we can put towards the mortgage and another student loan payment. The thing that I want to talk about is how I budget, because let's see, my income is predictable. So I budget based on expected expenses and not based on what my income is. So rather than saying, you know, I made $2,000, so I'm gonna cover last month's or last week's groceries, which were $500, and this and this and this, I budget based on what I make, and then don't spend. And you can do this even if you have variable income. You just budget on the lower end of what your variable income is. So you have to know, okay, every single month I need to make $3,000, which means I need to do X amount of work. And then if I have more money than this, I can put it towards this, this, or this. Rather than budgeting, like I made $2,000, so that means I can spend $250 on groceries. I can spend $200 on this. I just know what all my targets are, and as I get paid, I fill the buckets that exist. I don't wait to get paid to set what those targets are. I think this is a really great strategy because it doesn't leave a lot of room for error. It doesn't leave a lot of room for hitting your goals just based on your mood. You set those goals and every single target from like a very level-headed place where that is your focus. You do it once, and then every single month, it's like you have a bucket and you're just filling that bucket. And once it's full, you move on to the next one. The way that it forces you to reflect and say like, oh, I spent a lot in that category, which means I'm not gonna be able to fill it again for next month or whatever. I like how I budget. I'm gonna keep making these videos. We're gonna keep chatting about some of the same things, some new things as things come up. Stay tuned in the next couple weeks because I will be making my budget for 2026, which will be really exciting. There are a few changes that are gonna happen there. And it's where I'll really start to account for the fact that I did get a raise because what I expect to make and have to play with will change. And I think I'm gonna start accounting for some social media income in my 2026 budget. So that will have a lot more variability. If you're not already subscribed, you should subscribe. I have some cool things planned. Hopefully these videos just get better and better. I'm learning a ton. You're a pleasure to have.